Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. Happy to be back here in 2024, continuing on. And today we're joined by Sehmani. So, Sehmani, maybe you can, first of all, thanks for taking the time to join us. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to right now.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, JP. My name is Sehmani Leo. I am a licensed paralegal in Ontario. I am also a law student, but I'm attending law school in the UK. And I generally am doing a whole bunch of other things that has me wearing other hats. I sit on the OABP board, which is the Ontario Association of Black Paralegals. I also sit on the board for Justice Success Jamaica, just to help young women and women generally to be able to put themselves in a position to be successful in the workplace and job opportunities. And as well, I am going to be the vice president at OAVP soon. So we'll talk more about that. But here to chat about a few things, I guess.
Perfect. So let's get started. I mean, I know you're fresh off finishing your paralegal studies. We're not fresh anymore. I guess we're almost a year out. I was just talking to some students who are in week five. So they're almost done and going off into their internship. So you were kind of at that stage about a year ago. So maybe reflecting back on your time, at Centennial, and making the decision obviously to come and go into the paralegal program. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your story and that decision, and then finishing off and getting your studies done.
Okay, so my background comes from working in the Ministry of the Attorney General. I was a superior court clerk and a registrar, and working in Central East Region and in Toronto. So I come with a background of up to 16 years of just legal experience, both in the public and private sector. So I made the choice. I've always wanted to be a lawyer, but in the choice of taking the paralegal program, I felt that it would be the best decision to be made while I'm studying to be able to practice and actually get my feet wet in certain areas of law, and also just in general practice, and be able to be, a stronger leg once I do graduate and get my law license. But essentially, I would have taken the opportunity to attend school at Centennial College in Scarborough, Ontario, to take the 2-year diploma program. So it was definitely a journey, but I will say my colleagues would probably echo that last semester was very trying. So I'm with you there, students, if you're watching, if you're just finishing your last semester or just prepping for your P1 exam. It's definitely a tough road, but you guys will definitely get through it. But essentially, the P1 the P1 journey itself, in coming in the studying part of things, because you really need to be organized in order to be successful, because it's self-study. So once getting all of the materials and things like that, I would have created a procedure for myself, or just a study schedule for myself, and just specific things in terms of my way of learning. I know folks are oral and written, but I'm kind of both. I wanted to make sure that I was in my strength, and pushing forward to study within those 3 months, or three-ish months, creating some sort of study guide for myself. So I'm definitely here to share some tips and tricks, I guess, when we get into the nitty-gritty of it. But that's essentially what I went through, and I became a licensed paralegal in November 2023, and I've been practicing since.
Perfect. So let's kind of look then at the P1 there, since you brought it up. I know, if anyone's listening live or does come across this in the next couple of days, that there's a licensing exam on February the 21st. And even if someone comes across this in May or June and they're preparing for July's exam, and they're kind of going through that anxiety, I was talking to quite a few people this week who are now like, it's real, right? That in 2 weeks they're going to be sitting at the um, I don't know, Toronto Congress Center, or wherever or even in Ottawa. And they're going to be with all these people in the room, and they got 4.5 hours. And what's that like? And maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about that experience, and what tips you have to help them with getting through everything.
Okay, so I will say to the folks that are about to write, and folks that would be writing, I guess, in the July cohort after this one, preparation is key. When you get your materials, make sure that you are looking at what's in front of you. I'm not telling you to read everything first and foremost, but just look at what's in front of you and organize yourself. Some of us have to work 9 to 5 as well as study. Some of us have children. There's so many different factors to be considered. But once you get your materials, ensure that you sit down, look at what's in front of you, and then devise a plan. One of the biggest things I do suggest to the students that I speak to is that you create a circle for yourself. If there's people that are also studying and, coming out of your course as well, you've made friends, you've made, colleagues out of it. Make sure you join hands together and empower each other, have study groups together, bounce ideas off of one another. There may be a colleague that might understand certain legal concepts that you may not understand, and putting your heads together does create understanding. So taking things such as prep courses, doing practice questions, and having an index. Number one for me, having an index just for your referencing. The name of the game once you're taking your exam is referencing. Who's the strongest in referencing? Because you as an advocate, you as a paralegal, you need to be able to reference material. So in you prepping for your P1 exam, having an index or just having resources that you're able to refer to, it would allow you to be in your strongest I guess opportunity to be able to understand the material itself, because it's essentially your whole diploma or your whole certificate program for our accelerated folks in one book. So you have to be able to know what's in front of you. And I know the recommendation is it 3 times, JP, to read it?
Yeah, I think it's read it once, then you read it and highlight the second time, and the third time is kind of like a review of what you've read.
Yeah, that can be tough. That can be tough for some folks. So I really believe that if you're not able to read it the 3 times, you essentially just at least need to be able to read and review what's there, what's in front of you, not in its substance, but be able to at least make notes. Then you're working on your index. Your index, you need to be clear that your index is a working document. You are not to have a final version before at least up to 1 week before your exam, because you need to be practicing with it, yes, but there may be changes that you want to make. A tip that I would have in terms of your index is your referencing specific to topics. So as an example, as P1 candidates know, there are sections. So for example, there may be a section in criminal. There are certain topics in criminal, whether it's sentencing, whether it's judicial review, etc. You want to be able to double up on that. I might not call this section judicial review, but I will call this section administration. And I want to talk about the fact that it's in criminal and in administration, but I need to have it in both sections because judicial review is in reference to both. So you want to be able to have yourself referencing so intricately that you won't miss it if you're in your exam. So that's the number one tool I would say to use. And of course, your practice questions, because again, it's you working and you have to keep practicing and be able to use such things such as process of elimination, etc. Right? So these are the specific tips that I would say I would give to the P1 candidates for sure.
Yeah, so you brought up an index, and I think, there's sort of different schools of thought, right? I mean, I think the other thing is it as simple as, okay, well, now there's people out there that are either they've made an index, I'm sure you have an index, or people that have written, and they're like, oh, can you just give me your index? Or people are selling them, of course, is that, the same thing as having one, or is everything kind of the same? Or what would you recommend, if someone is kind of, again, 2 weeks out, they don't have one, they hear you say index, 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 they probably hear me say the same thing, and what do they do between now and the 21st?
In my humble and individual opinion, I do not believe one should take another's index. The index is meant to be customized. If you are purchasing an index, say, from specific providers, they give it to you on a very general basis. It isn't meant for you to take it as it is. It is meant for you to work with it. So you would have, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Sehmani, I need I need an index. Do you have one? Can you sell this to me? Or whatever the case is. It would not be advisable that you just take it for what it is. You need to customize it because you need to understand it at the end of the day. I can't take somebody's index and refer to it on test day, and the index, I haven't practiced with it. I have no idea where things are. What I might think be named, or the naming convention in certain pieces of the index where I would think it's straightforward, somebody might have renamed it and put it somewhere else. And then I'm here flipping through during the exam, trying to find it, wasting time, right? So it is not on advisement for myself that you would take an index as is. Indexes are meant to, indices are meant to customize you, and you need to take the time. If you're just getting an index, I'm sorry guys, but if you're getting an index right now, and it's February 21st is your exam, if you're not planning to practice with it, it's not going to be a helpful tool for you overall.
So when you say practice with it, I mean the other thing that that comes up a lot is doing practice questions, right? I mean, we've had I think at Centennial certainly I had a group of students last week, and you were there way back a year ago, right? And doing these practice exams. I mean, how do you kind of make use of that? Because I mean, I often tell students don't go and just start doing questions because you show up to the exam, you're not going to have the same amount of time. Like, obviously, if I gave you, it's like those math questions like that are online. Like, hey, could you solve this in like 10 seconds? It's different than if you have
Right.
like half a day to work on it. So, I mean, what did you do in terms of, practice questions and preparation? And you brought up the index. Like, did you have your index when you were doing the questions, or how did you do things?
Okay, so in my weeks, I would have created a schedule to review my material and then test myself on the weekends. So I did and that was on Sundays, but my prep in terms of the in terms of the practice questions itself, I would test myself on Saturdays. So essentially, I would have purchased some practice questions, and I would have practiced my timing, one, to my resources. So I would have created resources where it's abbreviations, terminologies, timelines, etc., laws itself, whether it's human rights or the Constitution, etc. I would have those types of things on my side. But the index, as I was mentioning earlier, that's not something that I printed until close to test time, which would have been up to a week. So I would have had it digitally. I used it on my iPad, so I was able to flip through pretty quickly. But I would essentially just create a regime to use my practice questions and utilize the resources. But I created such a schedule where I stayed consistent with it. So as the weeks were progressing in my studying, I was able to read my material, say, okay, this week I'm covering jurisdiction and fundamentals. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my practice questions on that specifically, 90 seconds per question. And I'm going to make sure that I'm utilizing all of my resources. And I laid it out as it would have been on the test. I know we're going to touch on that a little bit, but pretending that I'm in the test, and I did a practice test there at Centennial with you as well, JP. So creating a space where it mocks what exam day might look like, in laying everything out and just making sure I can reference and refer to things a lot quicker than for me to be flipping through the binder trying to find the answer.
Okay, I guess the last kind of thing before we get into a lot more to talk about there, but on the P1 side is what's the like the day of, right? I think as much as you do, like you mentioned, certainly a mock exam and you kind of time and all of that, what's it actually like coming to the building, sitting down, all these people are around you, spent like $1,000+ maybe even 2,000 if you factor in all the other materials and printing and prep courses and you got to pass this exam. How do you kind of deal with that? And again, that's sort of the question I get every time, like around this time, is how do I get myself steady come test day?
Well, I'm going to make sure I acknowledge all of the folks that have high anxiety because they would have been practicing very competently prior to the exam. And, there's nothing like an exam day. And especially because this is a certification you're, examining for, um, the overall, I guess, the overall experience is that you have to be prepared in knowing what is included in your day, knowing that you're prepared and what you're bringing, what you can't bring. Overall, it's going to be a very different experience in that you're going to be walking in. You do need to provide, like there's a coat check. So you're able to, this is going to be, yeah, it's still going to be winter. So folks will have coats and whatnot. There will be things that you do have to leave if you are driving. Leaving things in your car is smart. It's the test, the things that you're allowed to use for the exam, which is your actual material and anything that you've created to reference for yourself, you're able to bring in. I do suggest that looking at the LSO's requirements or criteria in what you're allowed to bring and what you're not allowed to bring is advisable. So look in your portals and make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. I can't speak to the time that I went because it may have changed since then. So it's best that you look at the LSO requirements that they have provided to the current candidates that they're able to reference when they go in. But essentially, you're walking in, you have to get all of your materials checked. So be very mindful of that. Having your things very organized and that you've labeled, you've tabbed, you have them in order, they're being checked. So be mindful of that. And if, flips of pages messes you up, that is not a position you want to put yourself in. So make sure things are, they're binded together. Make sure you're binding, no loose pages like that. Make sure things are stapled or however the LSO has allowed any type of binding. Make sure you're following that for sure. But just be organized and be mindful of what information is being provided to you prior to going. But the overall gist of it is that I was okay just simply because I prepared for it. I am a test girl, so I tend not to change up my anxiety level is still calm when I get there, but it's all about your preparation and your practice. Just keep practicing.
Perfect. So let's kind of switch gears, I think, after the exam and certainly, since you've been licensed and it's not been that long, but it seems that it has been because, every time I go onto LinkedIn, there's, some tips there from you about, building and I mean, I think also, you're coming from a unique perspective because you had kind of a business in the legal field. So maybe you can kind of touch on getting set up, right? Because I think there's a lot of, there are people, I've had tons of people over the years, right, talk about getting ready for the licensing exam. And then what happens next? I feel like, you check all those boxes, you send in, you do the oath at the school or, with your
Yeah,
instructor or whoever. And then you're like, okay, and now what do I do? And what
right.
do you have, 3 months out in terms of getting, lots on the go and sharing with people who, again, they might get the word, or some people like that just passed in November, right? They just got that kind of a couple of weeks ago. They
Right.
go to the Lost Site portal and their name's there and they're all excited. And now they're like, well, what do I do next?
Very true. So, when I did start the paralegal program, I went in knowing that I'm going to be working for myself immediately. There has been a lot of feedback from my colleagues that it definitely is tough for you to start. I just have a very big entrepreneurial, spirit, and I've had businesses before, so I don't see myself in any other space, and I know exactly what I want to do. So essentially what I decided to do literally as soon as I got licensed, I would have registered my business. So Kingston Law is what it's called. And I practice generally in criminal human rights. And now I've added a landlord tenant board more specifically, but I registered my business immediately, and I've been a sole practitioner, and I've had some amazing colleagues support me during my opening and just giving me feedback on best practices. So I've had some great clients, and it's definitely advisable that during your studies you're creating your network. Let people know what you're going to be doing if that's the thought process that you're going through in terms of opening your own practice. And there are, of course, folks that applied for jobs or want to apply for jobs, but more specifically, I stuck to the sole practicing just for me to be able to have an openness to choose what I want, what area of law. And if I want to shift, I can. I don't have to ask a boss to, can I start doing this area of law? And not to mention, it's very, very tough for newly minted paralegals to come into the space and get a job as a paralegal immediately. A lot of the experiences that my colleagues are having is coming in as a paralegal, they go straight into a law clerk role or a legal assistant role because, they don't have any experience there. I don't have advocacy experience prior to November because of the licensing, of course, but I do have a large amount of experience generally in the space. So I knew what I would like my practice to look like. And previous to this, I owned a virtual assistant business. So I'm very aware of what is required for a successful remote business itself. And then I just implemented those types of fundamentals and practices into my remote law firm. So I'm trying my best to just have that experience just articulate itself into when I'm a practicing lawyer, what that would look like. But that's essentially what I've been working on the past couple of months. But it's definitely been great so far. I've been very stringent at making sure. You see my posts, JP, and a lot of the clients that I'm receiving are all referral based, which is great. So it's great to put yourself out there. But I mean, there's so many tools. If you need the help, speak up, and there's definitely colleagues around to help.
And are you finding it challenging? Obviously, you have that experience, obviously remote, but we'll get into kind of the other piece there that you're in law school, right, in England, right? So, what about? I mean, I guess touching on sharing posts and putting yourself out there. There's this like kind of imposter syndrome. I think you actually even posted about it, but the feeling of like, do I belong in this space? I've been licensed for a hot minute. Like, how do you kind of, we were talking about anxiety even on test day, but like, how do you kind of get out of that headspace where it is, I belong, I'm here, here's what to do, and here's what I'm doing, and going out and sharing that, right? I mean, there's a lot of, very successful lawyers and paralegals, and you never see them on, kind of that space, or, and sometimes the people are on that space, it's not as genuine. I mean, they're basically like, it doesn't come across authentically like they're trying to help or trying to talk. They're just doing it because probably their SEO person is like, you need to post something, and you can kind of see through that. So what would you share for somebody that's kind of like thinking about, getting involved and putting themselves out there and sharing and discussing and try to build their business at the same time?
Okay, so I will definitely start with my experience. When I did start in the legal field, I didn't have a great experience in terms of mentorship. So I would have been discouraged to be in this space because there was nobody that looked like me. Or, I was always placed in a scenario where I was the only person of color in the law firm. Even if I was in the administrative role, there were no paralegals or lawyers that were people of color. So those were some of the things that I was facing while in the legal space. And as it's progressed in the spaces I've worked in, there's always going to be that scenario where I started in administration within the legal space. So did I see myself as an advocate, the big lawyers that I'm working with and all of the, tables they're sitting around and they're making all of these decisions for the firm? Did I ever see myself in that space? I could have never imagined that I would have pushed this far because it's been a dream of mine a long time. I just didn't see myself getting there because I didn't see anyone that looked like me in the space. So I'm like, is it really attainable? So essentially what I look forward to when I'm making my posts and all of that, JP, what I do is I'm keeping in mind that even if it's just one person watching, it's important for me to be able to motivate or inspire somebody with the information that I have. I've never been a gatekeeper, so I would love to always share information that's before me to be able to allow whoever maybe even thinking about a career change even. I was a young mom and I was, always going back and forth and tussling with the idea of being in law school or becoming a lawyer because of my home circumstances or my personal circumstances. I didn't see myself there. But as I'm progressing within my career, I just utilize the spaces I have and the platform I have now to be able to provide information as well as ask for information. What I haven't been is shy. So I've always, if I have a question, even if it's a practice question, I will hit somebody up in on LinkedIn. I've never spoken to them before, but they're in my network. I will boldly ask a question. The worst you can have is no answer or no, I have no time, something like that. But I do not take things personal. That's one thing in the legal space or in any, career space. You are not to take things personal when people are not willing to share information. That's generally somebody you don't want to work with anyway. But my advice would be to utilize the platforms that you're a part of. A lot of people do not utilize LinkedIn the way that it should be. There's so many connections and people watch. You don't need to be looking at your followers or looking at how many people comment. I see plenty of people on LinkedIn that have amazing careers, no comments, no likes, no like it does that's not what equates to your success or the fact that you belong in a certain space. You need to be consistent. People need to see your consistency. So one thing I will say is that since becoming or not becoming a paralegal, but studying and making that choice to actually step into the space as an advocate, it's consistency that I've never stopped. I will always ensure that I'm doing something to be greater than the last year, even if it's small little changes within myself. So I'm always going to suggest to anybody listening and anybody, that's wanting to put themselves in the space of being an advocate. If you're not a paralegal candidate yet, or you're not even in the diploma program and you might be thinking about it, I definitely believe if you love the law and, maybe not becoming a lawyer is not right now readily in your grip, this is something to consider. So if you need more information about it, I am opening up myself to you. If I'll make sure, JP has my LinkedIn there. You can reach me on LinkedIn and just DM me, and I'll definitely answer those questions. But never think that you don't belong at that table. Create it for yourself or create the space.
And certainly you mentioned there obviously when you were in the space and perhaps even still today and is that there are not as many people who kind of look like you, right? And I know you're about to, I mean, depending on when people are watching this, will be the a vice president of the Ontario Association of Black Paralegals. So maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about what they've been doing. I've had all sorts of different members over the year like Deborah and Chantel and Royland and April and so forth, right? Yourself, I guess, if you before you were a student of mine.
Yeah.
So what kind of has been happening? I guess you can kind of look back. I mean, I don't know how many years it's been now. Everything kind of molds together since the pandemic and in years for me. But in terms of where it started, from that idea and what's been going on and what do you see yourself now in this role? I mean, it's Black History Month. Actually, incidentally, there was a whole thing, a politician in my area here. Incidentally, I think a paralegal as well made some kind of controversial comments about Black History Month and should we be celebrating it and such. I don't know if it's kind of gone over to your end of the pond, but I mean, what's going on with the OABP and sort of what are you doing right now and what is sort of the vision over the next year and beyond?
Hey, well, first and foremost, yes, happy Black History Month to all folks in Canada. We don't celebrate here in the UK until October, I believe. But yes, happy Black History Month. So the OABP, some exciting stuff coming up. Shout out to the team and our founding and previous president, Deborah Mariah. She definitely has had such an amazing vision for the OABP, and we have been working so hard to just create space and foster the conversations that need to be had, such as our roundtables and things like that we've held in the past. It's allowed us to hear our members and potential members to talk to us about what they need and types of topics and information that we would like to create a space for. So essentially what we've been working on the past year, let's say, we actually have been working on a documentary, and I have shared that on my LinkedIn as well. Just our trailer, and that's to be released not too long from now. But we are super excited to be able to bring the perspectives of other legal professionals and just Black professionals in the legal space and their perspective on their experiences. So that is something to look out for. The OABP overall, we are expanding our board. So as I mentioned earlier, I am now going to be the vice president of the OABP, and we do have some other changes. So we'll be announcing the other appointments and placements soon. We are going to be expanding and having committees. So we will have a lot more reach in that we'll be able to have community engagement. Our membership will be, coordinated, and we'll have mentorship, which is the biggest thing for us, and programming around that. CPDs will be available. I know a lot of Black paralegals are having issues, especially in the smaller towns. Or, for example, we spoke with somebody who's from Niagara. She said she's never met another Black paralegal personally in Niagara. So this has allowed her to have a reach and accessibility to other paralegals that are in Ontario that look like her, So that has been a great aspect of our growth and our expansion. But we have a lot coming up, and super excited about the changes that we have. And we're definitely excited for the fact that we even exist. We don't want to not be here and then not have the opportunity to give to others that want to speak on their experiences, so we can do things to make a change. So we're definitely very excited about the OABP and the agenda we have going forward.
Perfect. I did not want to forget, certainly we can come back and talk about some more stuff, but that, you're in a different part of the world there. You're in law school, so it's not like you're done your studies. So what kind of made your decision to continue on? I think, you certainly had to make it while you were still in school.
Mhm.
And, your first semester is down. What's it like, studying law school in a different country? I mean, compared to, being a paralegal student, compared to, even doing it at this stage, right? Like, I mean, I think there's probably kids there that are,
Oh boy.
coming out of high school, right? So, I mean, what's everything been like? What can you share for anyone that's, again, around the same time, I think, they were probably coming around like, here's an option for you if you want to go to law school, and you don't have time now to go and write your LSAT and wait another. I think, the earliest probably you could start in Ontario is September 2025. I don't even know if you can. I think even that deadline might be soon passing. But what's that like? And maybe give us some insight.
Okay, so making the choice to do this in 2021, that would have been my first semester in September. I would have been in my communications class. So shout out to you, Shauna Pemberton. You were my professor then. She literally looked me dead in my face and asked me why I'm not going to law school the next year. And I was like, look, I didn't see myself there so soon. It was always a plan, but I didn't see myself going there for at least another 5 years or so. But I know that people would say, you keep procrastinating. If you don't go now, you're never gonna go. So she really drove it home for me to be able to consider it. And both myself and my colleague Christiana Cricks, she's here with me. We made the choice to apply. So we applied to law school. The bridge program that Centennial has, it's at Leicester, University of Leicester. There would have been, some perks, some benefits in applying. So we said, why not? We applied, got accepted into all law schools. So that was awesome. And wanted to figure out what that would look like if we were practicing paralegals. So I just thought about it as an income. I'm here to get income as well as the experience. I didn't want to, especially at my age, I'm not aging myself, but at my age, I do not want to I do not want to put myself in the position to learn I guess the foundational things right out of law school, because I know just from seeing other colleagues and other people that or other lawyers and associates when I was working in law firms, there was a huge gap in the things that they were not learning, especially practice management pieces. So I knew that I didn't want to learn that stuff right when I got out of law school. So those are the types of experiences I was thinking about when I applied. And moving to another country, I've never done that before, but it was definitely intimidating at first. I know folks like to say that, the UK and Canada are not that much different. It is. It is. So I'm not going to I guess downplay the changes in experience, but I'm grateful for it. And it's given me a very great vision of the differences and where the gaps can be filled, and even different areas of law that I didn't even consider are being put out to me. And as a licensed paralegal, being in law school now has given me so much more of an edge in the things that I didn't learn or wouldn't learn as a paralegal in the paralegal diploma program. So it's definitely given me a great boost. And I'm grateful for the experience overall, but I know that it is a journey. You're going to have to, if you're making that choice, it has to be a very intentional choice. But again, I'm here to answer questions for anyone that wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
So what's the biggest difference there? Are you eating lots of scones and drinking tea? And what's the
Okay, well,
stereotypical
not to
stuff there? Or
mention,
fish and chips?
let's not leave out snacks. The snacks are different, okay? We need our comfort food when we're studying and freaking out during exams, and a lot of things are just not available to us, unfortunately. So my lovely family has given and sent care packages, and my friends have been very amazing at contributing as well to the things that I miss. So that has been a little bit tough for the like I Jamaican background. I need my Jamaican food and groceries and things like that. It's not as easy as it would be if, for example, I'm in Scarborough and it's all there. It's just accessibility and knowing where you are. So just learning these types of things and finding out where you can access things. So the first 3 months were really tough because I didn't know where things were, but I also had to place myself or delve into my study schedule, and it is very stringent. You have to stay on top of things. Nobody's here holding your hand, so it's been a little bit different that way. And definitely the way that the law is, because it's an unwritten constitution here, a lot different. For my legal advocates there are a lot of different things that you have to consider when you're researching the law. So that has been something really different for me to experience.
I guess kind of putting everything together, right? I mean, so we've talked about obviously when you were a paralegal student, you're now a law student. You're soon to be the vice president of the OABP, but you've been involved with the organization for a number of years, and you have your own practice, and you're on the other side of the pond. How do you kind of juggle everything and certainly you're very active in a number of other things, right? That we've talked about, and certainly, mentorship of students writing the exam. You're posting regularly on different platforms and sharing that guidance, in terms of, you mentioned, there weren't many mentors for you years ago, but now you're already in a position where you're mentoring others. How do you kind of coordinate and juggle all that? And for anyone again that's kind of coming out, maybe watching. I mean, a lot of people watching live even right now. That what advice would you have for them in terms of making all of that work?
On a very practical basis, everybody knows the saying, you make time for what you want. And the thing is, I again was a young mom and I've only known balance and multiple hats. So it's just been one of those adjustment and pivot periods in my life where I know what I want and I adjust accordingly. There's I also have to consider that I'm going to be a lawyer one day and I'm going to have to juggle. I have to juggle multiple cases. I have to juggle multiple issues that might come up. My conflict resolution skills need to be top tier. Like, so there's so many different things to consider. So what is me studying, running a practice? Like it feels like, not to downplay that it's not a lot, but it feels like nothing compared to what I'm going into is what I'd like to place it as. But I will definitely say that the balancing needs to come from your commitment, your intention. What do you really want, and what is important to you? When it comes to the fact that you have a career, you're furthering your education, and you might have children, you might have a family to take care of. Balancing is important, and the ones around you, communication is key. I think it's really important to talk to your family, talk to the people around you, your friends, colleagues, supporters, allies, people who want to see you win. Talk to them about what your transition looks like. What do you need? How can they support you if you're being asked these questions? You need to make sure that you're boisterous about it and you're being very communicative about it. So I definitely will say, if I'm to advise anybody on the Balance Act, it's balance the with intention. Be clear. And I do a vision board every 3 months, and it's very clear to me what I want. And we only have one of these lives. We need to make sure that we're doing things that make us happy, and not have money be your drive. Money needs to be a part of what you love. That should just be the cherry on top. But we need to understand that there are always options. Be resourceful. It's never a no. There's always options for you to step into a different space if you need to, pivot if you need to. So it's important that you just consider those things. And when you talk about mentorship, the mentorship needs to be connected with who you see yourself to be in the future. Don't mentor yourself in or getting a mentor that is in a space where it's in your short future. Picture yourself in the future. And if you see a mentor or you have somebody that is in a space where you want to be, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years down the road, you connect yourself with that person. And I know it's not for everybody. Everybody's not bold, but jump in those DMs, in them LinkedIn DMs, and do what you got to do, and jump in those Instagram DMs. Politically correct, of course. Be very professional. I don't want you, hey, how's it going? Be professional, guys. Be professional. But make sure that you're being bold about it. If you can, people don't know you need things unless you say it, right? Now when it comes to the mentorship piece, JP, I just wanted to say that the fact that I'm now doing one-on-one tutoring actually for the P1 licensing. So if anybody wants to reach out, please do. And I'm a heavy proponent of JP's prep courses as well. So I want you all to utilize that, our P1 candidates, make sure that you're stepping into a space where you're being mentored into being successful into your examination. And last but not least, look out for it. I will actually be releasing an e-guide for P1 candidates and people stepping into the paralegal licensing process and the diploma. I'm going to have an amazing digital tool for you to be able to utilize. So look out for that.
So I don't know when that's coming, but any sort of like a quick a trailer of what to expect in there. Give us kind of like a quick summary here with the last few minutes that remain.
Okay, of course. So for Black History Month, the LSO has actually connected with Cable and the OABP. So we are going to be attending for a Black History Month event on February the 20th. It's a remote and virtual space, so a link will be provided. So if you are interested, let me know. And also there are other platforms that we're able to gather the information from, but please reach out if you're wanting to attend. In terms of the I guess just staying on top of tips and things like that, I do write a blog on my firm website. So it is called Off the Record, and my website is kingstonlaw.com, KING Sun SUN law LAW.com. So I would love to keep posting these tips, these tricks, these conversational pieces. I have decided to put something called the real legal question, sorry, at the end of every month, which allows, legal students, not just P1 licensing students, but legal students to engage in a conversation. Just last month, I had posted a video clip just talking about sentencing and rehabilitation, what conversations surround that. So please keep and pay attention to my blog. It's a really great engagement tool and great openness for conversation. And in working with JP as well, I'll continue to be speaking in classes and talking to students about some of the tips and tricks that they can use as they're practicing within engagement in their conversations with their colleagues, essentially.
Perfect. So, okay, so without, I think we're almost out of time here, but final words of wisdom from you. Anything you want to share for, I mean, any of the different groups, right? You know, for any um, P1 candidate, any student that's thinking about law school, any paralegal student that's in the program, you know, young Black females or males or anyone in terms of the OABP and sort of finding people, finding those mentors that can look like yourself and are there to give that support, you know, when things are looking daunting. Uh, Anything you want to add there? And thanks so much again, Samani.
No problem. Okay, so first and foremost, let's speak to the P1 candidates because anxieties are on 1,000 right now. So I will say to you, take your time, get organized. If you have been dragging your feet this entire time, use today to start getting yourself organized and putting yourself in a successful position. There is nothing worse than going into the exam unprepared, just feeling overwhelmed, and you will not do your best if you're in that position. So make sure that you're reaching out to who you need to reach out to, create your study groups, but get organized is the most important part of things. Now, I want to talk to the young Black professionals. It is Black History Month. I want you all to try and get into spaces where you can see other professionals that look like you. If you're unsuccessful right now in reaching out to mentors or just not having access to mentors right now, this is the month to be able to look at the events that are taking place and utilizing those events and connecting with people. Network, network, network. If you are an introvert and you're not someone to be outspoken, use a colleague to come with you. That's my trick. If you don't have somebody who's not the mover and shaker around the room, if you're not that person, bring them with you. They will be the middleman for you, but they will allow you to, connect with folks. Now, when we talk about OABP, we're actually looking for a law clerk liaison. So if you feel that that is something that you would be, great in, please reach out to me. That would be awesome to be able to place somebody there. And again, we do have committees for the OABP, and we'll be mentioning them more specifically next month. But we will have those opportunities available as we expand. Again, our LSO Cable and OABP event is coming up for Black History Month, February 20th. So reach out to me there. Overall advice, if you are a legal professional and you are somebody who is thinking about switching careers, or you're somebody who feels like you want to pivot into a new position that is within your firm, your organization, or opening your own practice even, be bold. Know what you want. Do not let anybody tell you that you cannot do something because you don't see yourself there. There is always, always a reason for you to have the thoughts that you're having in terms of your expansion and the way you would like to grow. There's a reason for it. So foster that thought and foster the steps that it takes to get there. Think about what you look like in the future if you were happy in that position. So work towards it, but never give up, push forward. And for the young moms, you got this. If you need advice from me, sneak in my DMs. I will talk to you about it.
Perfect. So thanks so much once again, Samani, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. And again, I like to continue on, get as many people, I'll keep doing this. I think once I start doing it again now, you get that scheduling going. I mean, once you take a break, it's hard to kind of come back. So I'm glad, you joined and done a couple of them this week and hope to keep them continuing. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.